Okay, it didn't say the normal recording in progress, but think it's working. Um, so I sent out emails for this Q&A and I hope everybody got them. So the last couple times I've asked you guys to vote for a time and maybe I should keep doing that. But for this one, I just kind of went ahead and scheduled it for today. I will go back to posting votes for times for this in the Facebook group. So make sure that you're in the Facebook group. But there was kind of a lot that I wanted to get to today. So it works out that nobody is tuning in live. So I want to go through and talk about healthy fats. I have put together a healthy fat guide for you guys. This is something that keeps popping up on a lot of the functional labs that I'm doing, and especially DNA Core. And I want to show you guys kind of what I look at on DNA Core. A lot of you and I, like, we've talked through all this. And then I'm also going to go through the guide. And since I will not get bogged down with questions and things like that. Oh, Jill is here. Okay. If I don't get bogged down with questions and things like that, I'm going to go through, I've put together a fiber guide. So we'll talk a little bit about fiber, and I'm going to show you guys, like, on a stool sample report what that looks like. So if any of you jump in, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of cruise through this, and I'll make sure that I post the recording in the Facebook group. So first, I'm going to share my screen. I want you guys to see, this is just a sample report. I didn't pull up a specific patient. But on DNA Core, we look at macronutrient recommendations and requirements, like for your specific genetics. And what's interesting to me is, in the last 10 years, we've really kind of bought into the idea of keto and low carb and that sort of thing. And what happened is, when we took carbs and sugars out of things, we replaced it with saturated fats. So what I see a lot in the women that I work with, and you'll see on this report, this says there's a moderate to high barrier to weight loss with carb intake, but a lot of times this is not the issue. So a lot of women that I work with come in, they have been on this just kind of like, eat like a bird, snack kind of thing, low carb diet, but it's actually their response to saturated fat intake that is the biggest issue. I'd say that that's the most common thing that I see. So what is saturated fat? You can see here on this report, it says there's a moderate barrier to weight loss with high saturated fat intake. And if you'll look down here, this has enhanced benefit for weight management when eating more polyunsaturated fats. So a lot of times I see either the monounsaturated or the polyunsaturated be the best way that they're going to lose weight. In addition to, eating good quality protein food. So I want to kind of walk you guys through, like, this is something that I talk through a lot with you guys who are doing DNA Core. And this is probably one of the biggest shifts from, like, the whole, like, keto is good and anything low carb is good, and really kind of breaking down and looking at, like, what type of fat it is. So let me stop this share, and I'm going to, hold on, let me pull that up because I have too many windows that I want to show you guys today, and it takes me a minute to pull everything up. Okay. So I am going to make sure that I make this guide available to all of you. I will post it in the Facebook group, and then I'm probably going to make it just like an actual module on the healthy program that you're going through. But it just kind of goes through what healthy fats versus unhealthy fats are. And it's a good guide. So you'll want to read through this in your own time as well. But so just kind of breaking down different types of fats. And I mean, I have studied nutrition for quite a while, and it still can be very confusing. And let me just say right off the bat that like I am not a fan of food fear. And I think that there's a lot of like the more social media, people speak about these things. There's a lot of accounts that are like, just making you afraid of food and food labels. And I mean, yes, eating less processed food is a goal for everybody. But I also think that sometimes it goes a little too far, and the stress that that creates surrounding food is more detrimental to your health than what's actually in the food. So I hope that this clears up any confusion and kind of breaks it down for you. But I think most of you know, like fats are a macronutrient. So protein, carbs, and fats. Fats are really important for hormones, for energy, for your cell growth, absorbing nutrients, helping you stay full. A lot of times in the clinic setting, when you have someone who has high cholesterol, you're telling them to eat less fat. But then what we see is that good cholesterol, HDL, is often low when you're restricting fat. So fats are helpful for everything, for your brain, cholesterol, everything. But we do want to talk about, okay, which ones do we need and which ones are creating quite a barrier to a lot of people being able to lose weight, especially with the whole like keto trends and stuff like that. So when we talk about healthy fats, unsaturated, the mono unsaturated and poly unsaturated fats are the best. And that's what I was showing you on DNA Core. Will come up as an enhanced benefit for weight management, meaning that you will maintain a healthy weight. You will lose weight easier when you're eating more of those types of fats versus saturated fats. Polyunsaturated fats reduce LDL cholesterol and raise the good cholesterol. So we don't want, even for people with high cholesterol, we don't want, no fat. I actually had a patient in the clinic come in one time and she said, I'm really excited to see my cholesterol this time because I've been reading labels and I'm not eating any foods with cholesterol. So she's still eating a lot of processed foods, but none of them are foods that have cholesterol. And her cholesterol was like 3 times worse. And a lot of that is because like the sugars and the carbs and, it's just all the wrong type. So, I get that there's a lot of confusion around it, but polyunsaturated fats are great for cholesterol balance. And these include omega-3s and omega-6s. So let's take a second to talk about these two different types of fatty acids. Again, a lot of you and I have talked through this. So remember, I mean, I think that, a lot of times omega-3s are presented as anti-inflammatory, which is true. Omega-6s are more pro-inflammatory, which is also true, but we need a balance of both. So it's not like we are aiming to completely eliminate omega-6s and only get omega-3s. We really want a good balance. And so in a lot of the functional labs that we're testing, the fatty acid ratio is something that we will look at. But just a note to make sure, like as we talk through this, that omega-3s and 6, we need a good ratio. Typically, omega-3s are very anti-inflammatory. And we'll talk about that in just a second. And then as far as unhealthy fats, those would be more of the saturated fats, like that DNA Core report that I showed you said there's a moderate barrier to weight loss with significant intake of saturated fat. Now, not all saturated fats are bad. But we do want to be mindful to keep them to more of a minimum. And then trans fats are the bad fats. So we'll talk a little bit about like where you would find those. So saturated fats are things like red meat. It can raise LDL cholesterol, which obviously can increase your risk of heart disease, stroke. I am okay with some red meat, like high quality grass-fed and finished red meat. But as Americans, I think we've kind of gotten the balance wrong as far as like relying more on those things and less on some of the mono and polyunsaturated fats. Trans fats increase bad LDL cholesterol and lower good HDL cholesterol. So we want your HDL cholesterol higher. That's a protective factor for your heart. If we are raising the bad and lowering the good, obviously that sets up for a really bad, what we call like LDL to HDL ratio. And that's where we see things like heart attacks and heart disease and that sort of thing. Trans fat is artificial. It increases inflammation, very pro-inflammatory. So we have the poly and mono unsaturated fats that are the healthy fats. We have saturated fats, I'd say kind of here in the middle, and then trans fats are what I really want you to stay away from. So I just kind of wrote out like how much fat do you need if you're doing low fat, moderate fat, high fat. This would have to do with like how your macros are set. Y'all don't really need to worry about that. Like I will calculate that for all of you. And, this is based on these grams change, obviously based on like how many calories you're having a day. So a lot of times I'll use your DNA core report to tweak this. But y'all, I mean, again, like you don't really need to, I do this work for you. So as far as like the macro calculation. So let's talk about some sources of healthy fats. I wonder if can y'all see this? Like, I think you can. I'm just going to scroll down. I don't know if you can see the full page. So olive oil, avocados, think about like plant sources of fat, plants and fish, salmon, sardines. Everybody's always like, yuck. Flax, trout, tuna, mackerel, eggs, olives, chia seeds, nuts. So nuts and seeds, nut butter, coconut oil. I will say coconut and coconut oil are saturated fat, but you'll see I put this note here about that they're medium chain saturated fat. So I would still consider them a healthy fat. They're metabolized differently. There's still many health benefits. Coconut is good to go. But these are plant sources. So avocado, olives, all the fish, eggs, nuts, seeds, foods that had to go through very few steps to make it to your table. And then sources of unhealthy fats. So saturated fats, like I said, red meat, grass-fed red meat in small portions are okay. If you're someone who had a DNA core report come back as being sensitive to saturated fats and needing to keep that to a minimum, that's definitely something that I would, have rarely. I say like 2 times a month. If it has 4 legs is what would be red meat. So 4 legs, only a couple times a month. Really reducing whole fat dairy, butter, ice cream, cheese, any sort of processed meat like bacon, sausage, and then fried foods. So remember, you don't have to avoid them completely, but we want to keep them to a minimum. And you can actually see on MyFitnessPal, if you go to the bottom of your food log, click on nutrition, and then that nutrients tab, you can see how much saturated fat, poly, and monounsaturated fat you had. And also it has trans fat on there. So trans fats, the bad fats, let's talk about where they come from. So we get them in small amounts because the FDA banned trans fats. But we'll talk in just a second, like how food companies get around it. So some amounts of them are naturally going to occur in some meat and dairy products. But these are the key words that you need to be aware of: hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated. So they actually make them by adding hydrogen to saturated fats. It extends the shelf life. It's a very cheap way to make things. So you're going to find them in baked goods. So like when you go to Publix and you get, the delicious Publix cookies or whatever it is, like that's where you're going to get it. You got to make sure that you check processed foods like crackers, popcorn, fried food, fast food, shortening. These are the places that you're going to find trans fat. And MyFitnessPal is pretty good about like if you see trans fat popping up on your nutrient under that nutrients tab, we want to find out where it's coming from. I think that it's just knowledge is power. So being mindful of that. So when it comes to checking food labels, again, I do not want you to be, like I don't want to cause any fear mongering or, I'm not for any of that, but I want you to be informed. And if you're informed and you still decide like, hey, you love, whatever it is and you want to eat it, then that's, that's your choice. So The FDA banned trans fat. The food manufacturers don't have to label it if it contains less than 0.5 grams per serving. So what they did was they reduced the serving sizes so that it would be less than this, but you're still getting trans fat. One of the biggest things that I would say, like, people don't realize that it's coming from, it's hidden in peanut butter. So if you look at so like Jif, if it's not the natural, Peter Pan, like all of those peanut butters, if you look at the label and it has the word hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oil, that is trans fat. So I would like for you to, not in like a fear response kind of way, but look through your pantry or your refrigerator, and I want to empower you to be able to read labels. And if you see these things popping up, I definitely reach out to me to say, like, hey, is there a better brand or version of this similar type food that would be better. And then seed oils, I have a note here down at the bottom. So seed oils are low in saturated fats. They do have healthy mono and polyunsaturated fats, but they're very highly refined. And anything that's very highly refined also is just a promoter of inflammation. So we just want to make sure that it's not like you don't ever eat things with those things, but that we get a lot of healthy fat sources like whole foods, and that it's not, coming from a lot of processed foods. Okay, so let me stop sharing that. And let's talk. So if anybody has any questions about fats, or like if anything comes up after you guys watch this replay, just let me know. I will again make this guide available to you. I did want to show you, so this is a stool gut health testing sample that I did on a patient, and this has to do with fiber. So I want to show you this real quick. So this patient doesn't have, has a little bit of imbalanced flora, but really here, if you look in this green category, I want everything to be 3 and 4 plus, and we have some no growth and some 1 plus. So this is just a garden that is not growing, is not as healthy as we want it to be. So we're doing some specific gut work together, but fiber is really what helps this grow and flourish. So if we scroll down, I want to introduce you guys to the term short chain fatty acids. This is a byproduct of dietary fiber. So if you look at this section here on short chain fatty acids, this is a reflection of how much fiber you're getting. And both the good bacteria will release short chain fatty acids, and this feeds the good bacteria. So when we have a robust garden microbiome that is growing and flourishing, all of these numbers should look good. So when we see a sample that doesn't, and I'd say 95% of Americans, probably even higher, don't get enough fiber, a lot of times this is what we see. So I wanted to, there's a lot, you can Google short chain fatty acids and read a lot of the studies that are being done about the significance that short chain fatty acids play in chronic disease, inflammation, healing, normal cell metabolism. So when we talk about the gut being the root of autoimmune conditions, cancers, mental health, even just the annoying symptoms that we feel like from a gut perspective on a day-to-day basis, fiber, short chain fatty acids, the gut microbiome, I mean, this is where it is. So I put together a fiber guide. Let me pull that up, get out of my fat. Okay. So as far as fiber, how much do you need and what are the best foods to eat to get it? Um, so dietary fiber, roughage is a type of carbohydrate your body cannot digest. Most carbs are broken down into glucose. Fiber is not. Fiber really helps absorb glucose. It passes through your digestive tract. And even though you can't digest it, it has lots of health benefits. Okay. So it feeds your gut bacteria. It helps with bowel movements. It helps you feel full longer. I mean, you guys will hear me say over and over, protein and fiber is nature's Ozempic. If you are getting enough fiber and you're getting enough protein, your blood sugar will be more steady. You will feel more full, and you won't have those like willpower, poor willpower cravings, that sort of thing. It prevents blood sugar spikes. I've told a lot of you guys, like fiber is like literally the fiber, like the fiber on your clothing. I mean, it helps bind to sugar and stabilize blood sugar. Lowers blood pressure, balances cholesterol, reduces the risk of heart disease, diabetes, colon cancer. You know, the GI doctors have been telling us for a long time, fiber, 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 high fiber diets for prevention of colon cancer, and it is true. There are two types of fiber. We have soluble fiber that dissolves in water and insoluble fiber. And you guys can read through this as far as like which foods kind of fit into which category. It is crucial for good health. Only 5% of Americans get enough. And these are the signs that you are not getting enough fiber: constipation, bloating, hungry soon after eating, high cholesterol, trouble losing weight, feeling tired and sluggish, and hemorrhoids, like any sort of straining. And hard stool is a sign of low fiber. So as far as how much you need, women up to 50 years old need at least 25 grams a day. Over 51, it drops down a little bit to 21. Men need 38, over 51 need 30. So this is the targets for all of you. And then high fiber foods. So broccoli, 5 grams for a cup. I'm just going to let you guys kind of look through. I've told you, and I've said in several Q&As, like raspberries have the most fiber per like of any fruit. They're low carb. They're easy for most of you to fit into your macros. They have a plethora of antioxidant benefits, and they have 7 grams of fiber per cup. So raspberries are a great option. Blueberries are really good too. Any sort of bean is going to be a good bang for your buck. And if you're not used to eating a lot of fiber, and if you find that these high fiber foods irritate your stomach, we want to make sure that we're increasing it slowly. So like if you hit 12 grams one day, the next, let's try to do 14 to 15. And I say that down here in just a second. But like if you had oatmeal, raspberries, flax for breakfast, almonds for a set snack, I mean, this is how it can add up throughout the day. It just takes being intentional with it. So just a couple tips to help get more fiber, just eating more fruits and vegetables. You know, a lot of times we're so focused on macronutrients with the protein, carbs, and fat that we overlook the micronutrients that we need. So really making sure that we're getting the micronutrients, we're getting the fiber, eating lots of fruits and veggies, aiming for 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. That's a lot. I mean, that takes a lot of strategic planning on our part. I would say if you get 3 right now, let's try to do 5. If you get none right now, let's start with 3. So kind of like we look at your steps and set goals for slowly increasing, let's do the same thing with fiber. And just like servings of fruits and vegetables that you're getting. Choosing whole grains, so choosing things like brown rice, wild rice, quinoa instead of white rice is helpful. Legumes, beans and legumes are loaded with fiber, have really good protein. That's an easy way to get more. If you can't tolerate beans, just have them in a small, like do like 2 tablespoons of black beans on your salad. I mean, do something very small. Get your gut used to that, but your gut absolutely needs it. Unless you have something like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, like SIBO, in which case you need like a low FODMAP sort of situation. And even then, that should only be for a short period of time. It should not be on and on and on. Then most people do need more fiber. Eating the skin, the peel of fruits and vegetables. So eating the skin of apples, pears is very helpful. As far as snacks, you can do, fruit, veggies with hummus, nut seeds. I like popcorn is a great option too. My favorite brand, you have to be careful with popcorn because corn is one of the most polluted industries in the States as far as like using GMO and genetically modified things on the crops. But Lesser Evil brand popcorn is a great snack. It is non-GMO. So that's a good option. And then just to increase it slowly, your gut bacteria needs time to adjust. So we don't want to add too much fiber too fast. That can give you gas, bloating. So increase it slowly by 2 to 3 grams per day. And then drink lots of water. So fiber is one of those tricky things where it's like, okay, wait, if I'm constipated, I need more, but wait, it could make me more constipated. If I have loose stool, I need more because it needs to bulk up the stool. So water is really the key that has to be paired with fiber for, keeping your bowels moving. So fiber absorbs water. You want to drink lots of water. That's why all of like Metamucil, Benefiber, all those, want you to drink a full glass of water with it. A lot of people ask me about like fiber supplements like Metamucil and those kind of things. Your body likes to get fiber from whole foods. So I don't like to have people leaning on something like that as far as how to get their fiber. We need colorful fruits and vegetables. We're all busy. We have little time for prep, but if we can be somewhat intentional with getting these things in, it is amazing how much better you feel when you're getting what you need. So again, like the fat guide, I will put this in the Facebook group, and I think that if I add it to a module in Healthy, you will get a notification saying that I added a module. So I'll put it in there. If anybody doesn't get it, please let me know and I'll make sure that I send it to you, but I want this to be available for everyone. Um, so if you have any questions about any of this, you can ask in the Facebook group, you can send me a message, but most of the time, like if you have a question, other people have questions too. So I like for that part, I work with all of you guys one-on-one, but I like for that part to be a community aspect, if it's something that you think other people are curious about. So yeah, but if it's not something you want to ask in the group, I'm happy to answer one-on-one. Okay, so next time I will let you guys vote on time for Q&A again, and I'll make sure that it gets posted in the Facebook group as well. I don't know that I should rely on email, so I'll do both. And I think that next time we're going to do stress and cortisol and kind of go through some of those reports and some stress management, like almost do like a little stress management workshop sort of thing. I'll let you guys vote on the next time for that. It'll be in a couple weeks. And if you guys have any ideas for topics or things that you want to talk about or curious about, have questions about any tests that you want to go through, I'm always happy to go through sample tests and kind of work through like what does this tell me? We can always do that too. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend and a great week. Make it a great week.